Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the Gamaliel Legal Clinic. It's wonderful to have you all join the call. And just want to assure you all that you're going to have a wonderful time today during the legal clinic. As in case there's anyone here who doesn't know what the theme is for today, the theme is tax law compliance simplified. And I know this was scheduled to be a physical meeting. However, we're having it virtually to have a teaser of what's to come when we finally have a physical meeting really soon. So please take your notepads, prep your questions, and we look forward to having a great time together. Thank you. A special welcome to all our speakers. We appreciate you, and we can't wait to see the amazing things you have for us. Can you all hear me, just to confirm, please? Because your videos are turned off, so it's really hard to pick up. Okay, thank you. So it's really hard to pick up on, did they hear me, did they not hear me? Okay, all right, thank you, everyone. And so we'll be having our first speaker. Our first speaker is, please give me a sec, because I want to read that citation. Okay. So our first speaker is Mrs. Basira. She was here. Let me just confirm. I was seeing her face just a few seconds ago. Mrs. Basira, okay. Mrs. Basira, please, can you confirm you're here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see your face again. I could see your face prior, and then all of a sudden.
Yes, I'm trying.
So I wasn't sure if you were here before introducing. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So our first speaker is Mrs. Basirat Akin Bashiru. She's a graduate of economics from the Lagos State University, where she later obtained a master's degree in business administration with specialization in financial management, in addition to several other professional management and leadership certificates. She started a career with the Ministry of Finance in 1997 as the Inspector of Taxes and was later redeployed to Lagos State Internal Revenue Service when it became a full-blown agency, where she rose through the ranks before attaining the current status of an Assistant Director, Personal Income Tax Directorate. Basirat Akin Bashiru is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN, and a certified member of Association of National Accountants of Nigeria, ANAN. Basirat Akin Bashiru has been exposed through the years to both local and international training and conferences, which have equipped our competence in areas of performance, people management, customer service, teamwork, productivity, leadership, competence, conflict resolution, and interpersonal relationship. Little wonder, she did excellently well when she headed 7 different tax stations, namely Ikeja, Oregon, Aguda, Ikoyi, Alausa, Ogba, and Igomo, before she was promoted to the position of regional coordinator. Today, as an assistant director, Basirat Akin Bashiru enjoys the confidence of the agency's top hierarchy, to the extent that she is always at home whenever duty calls her to represent the agency at public functions and conferences like our legal clinic here that she's so graciously graced us with. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mrs. Basirat Akin Bashiru. Madam, you have the floor, ma'am.
You actually, yes. Good morning, everyone. I don't know whether I should on my video or I should just, okay, let me on it.
Yes, please. Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us as an agency and me representing the team as a whole. Yeah. Sajiboye, I know you've really worked on me for me to be here. I appreciate your tenacity and
thank you very much.
And I hope your agency or your group actually appreciating you for the work you've done so far for me to be here. Thank you so much. Yes, you fine. You know, you only said this one is a teaser for us. And Ajiboye begged me that it's just for 15 minutes. So I'm going to work with that time, maximally 20 minutes for me to speak on what and what I expected, the taxes I expected from members or for the public to pay to LRS. Fine, we all know that taxation is a compulsory levy or contribution on our income to the development of government projects. Let me use that one. It's compulsory for all taxable adults. Though sometimes where a junior or a minor has an income hanging from anywhere, it's only on him or her to pay taxes, whether in form of withholding taxes or dividend or interest in whatever form. But basically, we're only speaking on taxes due to the states. We know that we have three tiers of government: the federal, the states, and the local governments. I know I have one of my brother here that will speak, Mr. Amaru is here, that will speak more on the federal. What and what taxes is due to the federal government, but I'll speak just basically on the states. Number one, we have about six that is due to Lagos State. We have the personal income taxes, which is due to Lagos State. It could be on direct assessment, it could be on payee. We have the withholding taxes. It's also due to Lagos State. It could be on any of our revenue line, whether it's on rent, whether it's on dividends, whether it's on rent, contracts. There are about 5 or 6 or even more than 10 on line of withholding taxes. But basically, they will be for the individuals, the individual persons, not the corporate entity. That is basically for the federal. For any withholding deducted at source that is accrued to the individual's person, as your name or an enterprise, is due to the state governments. We have that. The personal income tax is whether you are a self-employed individual, whether you have your own company, having an income in that regard, or you are in a paid employment. The onion is on you, your establishment to deduct as source. Whatever income you're earning, the onion is on your agency or your company to deduct as source with the payee that is due to the state government. I mentioned about the withholding taxes. We also have the capital gains that is deducted for the individuals alone too. We have the stamp duties on instruments that is accruable to the individuals alone. Basically, all taxes for Lagos State are on individuals, not on companies. The company is left majorly for the federal inland revenue. Though in the past, the individual residing in Abuja always paid to the federal inland revenue too. But now that we have IRS in the federal, so they pay to the state. But all others, companies or any individual that is residing outside the country, pays to the federal inland revenue. So that is a little bit where the difference is in a little bit. And we also have the pool betting, the game betting, that is on a minimal level, just not as pronounced as the others. We have the business premises for the business owners of businesses, and have development levy too, which is a compulsory levy for all individuals residing in Lagos. As far as an adult and you're earning an income, you're expected to pay development levy just 100 naira minimum for the state government. So how now? Let me just now discuss what it entails now for the personal income tax. Just briefly, the personal income tax, like I said, is divided into two. If you're a self-employed individual, your income for the year, you're going to pay for the following year. And by law, you need to file in on or before 31st of March of the following year, all the income you earned in the previous year. What do I mean? Let's assume in last year, 2023, all the income you earned in 2023, January to December, by law, you need to file them in on or before 31st of January this year. So anything outside that, you are against the law and you may be penalized or made to pay withholding taxes or made to pay a penalty on those income you follow. We set up a BOJ for you because you filed late. And if you are in paid employment, that means you are in payee, your company or your agency becomes an agent of the government for them to, on behalf of the government, collect all these taxes on the staff working with them at the end of the month. Before the 10th of the following month, they will pay. So by law, by 1st of January, 1st to 31st of January every year, the law says all the payee the company has made to you by 31st to 31st of January, 1st of January 2023, 31st of December 2023, the law says your company, who is the agent of government, need to file your returns for the following year, which is 2023, for 2024. So that's what the law says on that personal income tax. And we told him, when you are engaged in the contracts as an individual or an enterprise, the law says you need to pay 5% to the government, the worth of the contract, and the contractor, who is the person that employed you to do that job, we pay the 5% to the government. Though every year or every time you do such tax, the 5% we pay to the government, where the contractor, now let me use that word, the contractor that employed you to do that job on contract for him or her did not pay that value to the government. The government, the law allowed them to pay by 30 days after such revenue deducted from your contract now, for them to pay within 30 days. That's what the law said, they should make such deduction and remit to the state governments. Let's assume we did a contract for them by 31st of January. By law, they would have deducted that money. The law said they should make that remittances by 31st of February or February 29, 2029. But let's say 29 of February, the law said they should make the payment to the government. Where they did not pay that value to the government, they filed the law and they will penalize for that, maybe 10% at the prevailing current prices. They will make that payment to the government. The other ones that are not for individual will pay to the federal, federal inland revenue. Then let's assume it's also supply. The same thing applies to supplies too. When you have an interest, final tax, the interest and dividend on your if you have a dividend which is personal to you, do not allow that majorly the banks that you invested on, we make 10%, we pay 10% to the government of what the value of the dividend you have with you. But it says only basically did with individuals, not the corporate bodies now. The corporate is left for the federal, which I know my brother, Mr. Omar, will explain better to us. Then we have also, let me steal my book now. We also have other withholding taxes. Let me look at the other ones we have. I'm trying to remember what we have also again. Just give me a minute, please. Oh. Okay, yes. We also have dividend. I mentioned that. We also have director's fee. It's also 10%. If you're a member of the board of directors now and you have sitting, let's assume 2-3 times in a year. At every sitting, whatever allowance is paid to you, a certain allowance will be paid to the government. So cumulatively, they calculate at the end of the year to make such value to the state government, 10% of that value. We also have royalty. If you have a copyright job now, that you're supposed to pay royalty, they're paying royalty to you as an individual. The government says you pay 10% of such royalty to the state government as an individual, not the corporate bodies now. We also have commission. We have a commission. That is also 10%. through an individual to the state government. I've talked about consultancy. You also consultancy and management, the professional fee. You also pay 10% on that. Technical services too is 10%. It's 5%. Sorry, I'm mixing it up now. Commission is 5%. Royalty is 5%. Consultancy is 5%. Building and construction is 5%. And all types of contracts are also 5% to the state government. The others are 10%, which is basically for the corporate world. Then on business premises, if you have any entity that you establish now, by law, you need to pay 10% business premises every year. If it's a newly registered company, 10% every year on that for business premises. Subsequent year, a renewal is 10% every year. Your development levy, individual, just 10%. 5 individual is just 100 naira every year to the state governments. So I believe that is the basic taxes accrued to the states. We don't need to go further. We leave that to the subsequent physical meeting that we need to have. So I'll stop there. Thank you, Opayemi.
Thank you very much, Matt. That was quite short and insightful. Just to confirm, Matt, you're staying to the end of the call, or would you like us to take some of your questions? Okay. Thank you, Matt. Because questions are already coming in, that's why I'm asking if I should just address your questions now, or just wait till when we have general questions.
I'll be available.
All right. Thank you very much, Matt. All right. I hope everybody was taking notes and listening during that session, so you know exactly what to expect moving forward, especially those that are in default or those who want to start a business that are unsure as to what taxes they're required by law to pay. All right, thank you, everyone. So we'll introduce our second speaker. Our second speaker is drum roll. Our second speaker, Mr. Gabriel Maro, please confirm you're on the call, just to be sure. I think I see you. Mr. Gabriel.
Yes,
okay.
I'm here.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so our second speaker is Gabriel Umaro. Good morning, sir. He's the Deputy Director of Tax at the FIRS. He joined in July 1995, and his present position is Tax Controller, Ikeja. He controls small and micro tax. He's in control of the small and micro tax office. He's held several positions at the FIRS, including tax controller Ali Mosho between 2021 and 2023, tax controller Broad Street between 2016 to 2021, tax controller Ikoyi in the year 2016, head of audits Broad Street in 2015. He has an academic qualification from the Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto, where he obtained his bachelor's degree in economics. He has an MSc economics from the University of Lagos as well. Professional qualifications include, he's a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, and is also a member of the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Mr. Gabriel Umaro, who will be speaking to us from the FIRS. Welcome, Mr. Umaro. Thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much for that introduction. I sincerely want to thank the organizers of this program for the invitation. On behalf of my management, the management of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, I want to thank you very sincerely for giving us this opportunity to share some light about what is going on in FIRS, attaining tax compliance of businesses in Nigeria. I sincerely thank Mr. Jiboye who has been following me up and giving me details of this meeting. Thank you very, very much. So without wasting further time, I think it is better for me to go straight to sharing my presentation. Thank you very much. God bless you. I have a presentation here. Okay, fine. Okay, let me see whether I can. Okay, it's already here. So there are issues to discuss as forwarded to me by Mr. Jiboye. Registration requirement is one of the issues to discuss. So who should register for tax with FIRS? Okay, can I share from my own end here, please?
Yes, sir, you can.
Okay, let me do that.
It's on now. It's going well.
Okay. Okay. Can you see my? Can you see? Hello?
Not yet.
Very well, sir. We can see.
Okay, yes, now you're
okay.
showing. All right.
Very good, very good, very good, very good. So issues to discuss, I talked about registration requirement. Who should register for tax with FIRS and the time to register for company income tax and VAT under the law. I'm also to discuss about the applicable taxes for different business structures. So what are the applicable taxes for business name, individuals doing business, limited liability companies, NGO? I'm also to discuss with particular reference to VAT. So what is VAT? Goods and services that attract VAT. When should VAT be charged? Are there exemptions? Withholding tax, what is withholding tax? What should be it? When should it be charged, and applicable transactions and exemptions? Then I'm also to discuss about company income tax, stamp duties, and capital gains tax. Of course, these are the different type of taxes collectible by FRS. We have VAT as one of the taxes collected by FRS. We have withholding tax, we have company income tax, we have stamp duties, we have capital gains tax. That is what we collect within an small and micro tax office. Like in my own office, these are the type of tax that we basically collect. So without waiting for that time, we'll go straight. Okay, fine. There's also time of filing of taxes, including penalties for non-compliance, tax promise team generation and self-generation, filing on tax promise live presentation. That will be done in a subsequent live program. And then how to obtain TCC and its benefits. So I'll go straight to the presentation now. So registration requirement, who should register for tax? So registration is the first obligation for every taxable person. We have different obligations for a taxpayer, but it starts with registration. You must register for tax first before you are recognized as a taxpayer. Before you are brought into the tax net, you must register for tax first. Then after the registration, we also have filing. Filing becomes the next, obligation of a taxable person. And after the filing, you are expected to pay the relevant taxes that arise from your filing. So who should register for tax with FRS? All taxable persons incorporated with Corporate Affairs Commission are expected to register with FIRS. All taxable persons. All taxable persons include both limited liability companies, business name, NGOs. All companies registered with CAC, they're expected to register for tax with FIRS. So they include companies registered as business name, company registered as limited liability companies, and NGOs. Individuals that are engaged in businesses are encouraged to get their businesses incorporated for ease of registration with FIRS. There are individuals that are into businesses, doing businesses, but they are not yet incorporated. It's very difficult for us to register those ones now because our registration portal is interfaced with CAC portal. So as long as you're not registered with CAC, it's rather very difficult for us to register you. So we encourage cases like that, especially for individuals that are in businesses, to get incorporated first before we register you under our Tax Promise platform. So registration with FRS is now fully automated using Tax Promise platform, where the taxpayer is expected to issue a TIN. We know what TIN means, Tax Identification Number. So the Tax Promise platform is linked to the CAC portal, meaning that any company not found on the CAC portal cannot be registered with FRS. So in short instances, we advise taxpayers to first regularize with CAC before a seamless TIN registration. Then taxpayers can also do self-registration. So in the course of our physical meeting, maybe we'll demonstrate how to do self-registration, how a taxpayer can self-register themselves with FRS to generate TIN. It can also be done in the office-assisted registration. But in both cases, final activation and documentation. So there is need for documentation. So a taxpayer that does self-registration will still have to come to our office for documentation process to open a file. So the step-by-step process has been forwarded to Mr. Jiboye already. So he will share that with you. Time to register under the law. What time should a taxpayer or a taxable person register for a taxpayer? Section 35 of the Finance Act 2059 states that a taxable person shall, upon commencement, very, very important, upon commencement of business, register with the service for the purpose of tax. So immediately a taxpayer commences business, it must register with FIRS upon commencement. Also, Section 3 of the Finance Act makes it in 2019, make it mandatory requirement for all companies to obtain a TIN as a precondition to open a bank account. So, for example, before you open a bank account, you'll be required to present a TIN, and that TIN has to be activated in FIRS before you are required to open a bank account. So that makes it mandatory for you to obtain a TIN from FIRS and to register with FIRS. So there's also a penalty for failure to register. Section 8 of the VAT Act says penalty of 50,000 for the first month and 25,000 for subsequent month in which the failure continues. That means that if a taxpayer that is in business fails to register, the first month penalty is 50,000, and for subsequent month is 25,000 as the failure continues. So it's very, very serious. So taxpayers are advised to register so as not to be penalized, because the penalty is in cumulation. The first month is 50,000, and subsequent month will be required to be paying 25,000 until you eventually register. Then there's also provision for deregistration. There's a provision for deregistration from the tax promax. So where a taxable person permanently ceases to carry on a business, it shall notify the service within 90 days of cessation of its intention to deregister for the purpose of tax. So within 90 days, you have to inform FRA that, yeah, I'm ceasing operation, and not even suspend, I'm permanently ceasing operation. So with that information, we will deregister you from the tax promax platform. Then applicable taxes for different business structures. So what are the applicable taxes for different business structures? You know, we have different business structures. We have business names, we have limited liability companies, we have NGOs. These structures, business structures, they are expected to remit taxes to FRS. What are the applicable taxes? Taxes that are remittable to FRS by these business structures. For business names, they pay VAT to Federal Inland Revenue Service. So they're expected to pay VAT to FRS. That is one. That is one of the obligations is to pay VAT to FRS. Another one is to remit withholding tax deducted from limited liability companies. So if a business team deduct withholding tax from limited liability companies, they must remit to FRS. However, if they deduct from individuals and enterprises, they remit it to the State Internal Revenue Service. The limited liability companies also, they pay VAT to FIRS. They pay VAT to Federal Inland Revenue Service. They pay company income tax to FRS, and they remit withholding tax deducted from limited liability companies to FRS. So you can see that limited liability companies pay VAT to FRS. They pay company income tax. However, business name pay their income tax to the State Internal Revenue. They are only obligated to pay VAT and withholding tax to FRS. Limited liability companies pay VAT to FRS. They pay CIT to FRS, and they remit withholding tax deducted from limited companies to FRS. So what about the NGOs? NGOs' income, we all know their income is exempted from company income tax. They are not expected to pay tax on their income. However, they are to remit withholding tax deducted from limited companies to FRS. So if they give out contract, for example, they deduct withholding tax. So they are agents of collection of withholding tax to FRS for limited liability companies alone. So their VAT on their purchases is zero rated. We'll go to that when we're discussing that VAT, when we are to discuss VAT. VAT on their purchases is zero rated. VAT on their taxable business is payable to FRS. It's possible that some NGOs do some VATable businesses outside their core NGO functions. So those businesses that are taxable, they pay their VAT to FRS as well. Now we shall be discussing the different type of tax collectible by FRS. One, value-added tax. What is value-added tax? It's tax on consumption of goods and services. We all know that. And it operates on input VAT and output VAT mechanism. The burden of the tax is borne by the final consumer of the goods and services. So what goods and services attract VAT? What goods and services attract VAT? Section 2 of the VAT Act 2004 as amended states that VAT shall be charged and payable on all supplies of goods. Note, please, all supplies, and underline, all supplies of goods and services in Nigeria. You see, other than those listed in the first schedule of the VAT Act. So the first schedule of the VAT Act talks about exemption. There are some goods and services that are exempted from VAT. Those ones are lifted in the first schedule. However, any good that is not listed in the first schedule, as long as it falls under the category of goods and services supplied in Nigeria, they must pay VAT. Okay? When should VAT be charged? When taxable persons at the point of supplying taxable goods and services to their clients or their customers, they charge and collect VAT. So at the point of supplying taxable goods and services, you are making supplies, for example, you are selling, for example, you charge VAT at the point of making that supply. VAT so collected is called the output VAT. So the output VAT is VAT on supplies, charged on supply. The excess of the output VAT collected and allowable input VAT. Input VAT is VAT paid on processes. So the difference between the output VAT and the input VAT suffered by a taxpayer is what is remittable to FRS. Then time of filing and payment, time of filing. The due date of filing is on or before the 21st day of the month following the month of returns. So the due date of filing VAT is on or before the 21st day of the month following the month of returns. For example, the VAT for the month of July has to be filed on or before the 21st day of the month of August following the month of that July. So then we also have what we call withholding VAT. Withholding VAT. Federal Inland Revenue Service appoint organization to deduct withholding VAT at source at the point of making payment on taxable goods and services. So there are some organizations that are appointed by FRS to deduct VAT at source. Those organizations are government agencies, all government agencies, MDAs, government agencies generally. Then banks, all banks are appointed as agents of collection. So apart from their own VAT that they pay, so if a supplier supply goods to bank, and a banks in this case should be the final consumer of those goods and services. So, but instead of paying VAT to their customers, they deduct at source, they withhold at source and remit to FRS. So they are appointed as such. Oil companies also, telecoms, but for now, Airtel and MTN are appointed as agents of collection of VAT, withholding VAT. The remittance of withholding VAT deducted at source is done within 14 days. Unlike the other one, which is 21 days, withholding VAT must be remitted to FRS within 14 days of the month following the month of returns. Then we have what we call self-charge. Self-charge. Taxable persons that enjoy the services of companies and individual operating below the 25 million exemption threshold, or the services of those who do not charge VAT on their invoice, are expected to self-charge themselves and remit to FRS. The essence of this is that no VAT is lost. So there's some companies, they claim that they are operating below the 25 million naira threshold. And so the law exempts them from charging VAT. However, if they do any business with any company, so those companies that are enjoying their services to charge themselves, because they are the one enjoying the services, they should self-charge themselves and remit to FRS. That's what we call self-charge. Then penalty for late filing. Penalty for late filing of VAT. The first month is 50,000. Then subsequent month for failure to file is 25,000. Then there are some exemptions to VAT. What is VAT exemption and what is VAT exemption and zero rated? Exempted goods are completely outside the VAT system. The taxpayer cannot charge output VAT and cannot claim input VAT suffered. So they are out of this, they are exempted. So such goods and services are exempted completely from the VAT system. So the taxpayer cannot charge and it cannot claim input VAT. Examples of such goods are medical and pharmaceutical, basic food items, books and educational materials, veterinary medicine, all exports. For example, if you are exporting your goods outside Nigeria, it's not expected to suffer VAT. So they're exempted. The Finance Act 2020 also exempted land and building. For example, you have land, you're selling land, land is just not vatable. Building has been exempted from VAT. Money, for example, BDC, all these BDC, you know, they trade in money. They're not expected to pay VAT. Money and security. So if you sell your shares, for example, you're not expected to charge VAT or pay VAT on it. So they are exempted from the definition of goods for the purpose of VAT. Okay, what is exempted services? We have exempted good, exempted services, medical services, tuition fee, services rendered by microfinance banks and mortgage institutions, all exported service, airline tickets, etc. So they are all listed in this first schedule of the value-added tax act. So what is zero-rated? Zero-rated items are the VAT, are in the VAT system, but taxed at 0%. That's why it is called zero-rated. It's taxed at 0%. So they are not expected to charge VAT. The VAT on it is 0%. However, the input VAT suffered is fully refundable. So if a company that is into zero-rated, that supplies zero-rated items, those companies, they are allowed by law to claim input VAT in full. Those input VAT is fully refundable by FRS. Example of zero-rated items: goods and services purchased by diplomats. Okay, goods and services for use in humanitarian donor-funded projects by NGOs. These are examples of zero-rated items. So goods and services purchased by diplomats. For these diplomats that are in Nigeria, if they purchase any good or service from anywhere in Nigeria, they are exempted from paying VAT. In fact, their VAT is zero-rated, zero-rated. And then goods and services for use in humanitarian donor-funded projects by NGOs. So NGOs do not pay VAT on their core NGO activities. Withholding tax. Now, another type of tax is withholding tax. Withholding tax is deduction at source made on payment due to a taxpayer. So when you are making payment, when a taxable person is making payment to a taxpayer, he has to deduct withholding tax at source. So it is not regarded as a separate type of tax. However, it is an advance payment of tax. It's an advance tax because the tax credit is available for offset by the taxpayer to offset the final tax company income tax liability. So withholding tax is an advance payment of tax. So the taxpayer can use it at the future date when his tax liability is due to be paid. So he uses the withholding tax suffered as source to offset his or her tax liability. Okay, but it is the final tax to non-resident companies. The amount deducted on any payment to a non-resident company shall be the final tax. It is an advanced payment of tax for a company registered in Nigeria, but for non-resident companies, companies that are outside the country but doing business in Nigeria, the withholding tax they suffer in Nigeria is the final tax. In other words, they are not expected to pay any type of tax again after the final tax deduction, the withholding tax deduction. Then when should withholding tax be charged? When? The obligation to charge at source shall arise at the time of making payment. So if you are making payment, the taxable person is making payment for goods and services supply, for example, for contracts, they are expected to charge at the time of making payment. Then when liability is recognized, when a liability is recognized, at that point, you are expected to charge withholding tax. Time of remittance of withholding tax, what time? Filing due to FRS must be done not later than 24th day, just like that, not later than 24th day of the month following the month of payment. So the company organization making deduction is a taxpayer, while the company that suffered deduction as source, the recipient of the payment, are the beneficiaries of the credit. So the credit is always available to those that suffer the withholding tax. And that the beneficiaries, they use the withholding tax suffered as source to offset their company income tax liability at the future date. Then penalty for non-compliance. We have penalty for non-compliance. 1. So if a taxable person required to make deduction of withholding tax and fails to deduct, or having deducted but fails to remit to on or before the due date, is liable to tax withheld or not remitted, in addition to 10% penalty. So 10% penalty of the tax not deducted, and interest at the prevailing central bank monetary rate, monetary discount rate, and imprisonment of a period not more than 3 years. So number 2, If the person fails to deduct but pay the gross amount to the recipient, the person is required to pay only the administrative penalty and a one-off annual interest on the amount not deducted. So if this person fails to deduct as source, he only pays the penalty, the administrative penalty, and the interest. Number 3, the amount to be deducted as such shall be twice the rate specified for such transactions where the recipient has no TIN. You can see. So that is why it is important that the recipient has a TIN. That is why it is important that the recipient of such payment suffering withholding tax as source must have a TIN. If you don't have a TIN, the amount to be deducted as source is twice the amount specified for such transaction. Then exemption to withholding tax. There are some exemption, of course. Across the counter transaction is exempted. So for example, if you walk into a supermarket or walk into the market to buy something across the counter, it is not subject to withholding tax. Interest and fee paid to a Nigerian bank by way of direct debit of the funds domiciled with the bank. For example, interest on loan. You know, some of us, if you go to the bank and take a loan, you are expected to pay interest on that loan. So at the point of paying interest, withholding tax is deducted. So, but you are the one paying the interest. But because the fund is domiciled with the bank, you have no access of deducting. So it's the bank that deducts on your behalf. So that is why that one is exempted. Then imported goods. Imported goods. We import goods from outside the country to Nigeria, you do not pay withholding tax. Manufactured goods, not subject to withholding tax. Any payment in respect of income exempted from tax, especially small companies. Small companies with turnover of 25 million naira and below are not is exempted from tax, according to the Finance Act 2019. So such companies are not expected to suffer withholding tax on their income. Applicable transactions and rate for corporate and non-corporate recipient. Applicable transactions and rates or withholding tax for corporate and non-corporate recipient. We have dividend. The dividend payable to FRS is at 10%. For corporate, you know, FRS collect for corporate. Non-corporate is remittable to the State Internal Revenue Service. So the applicable transaction we have there, we have dividend at 10% for FRS, 10% for Lagos, for the State Internal Revenue Service. The interest, 10 for the FRS and 10 for the state. Rent, hire and lease, 10% for both state and for FRS and the state. Royalty, 10 to FRS, 5% to the state. Commission, consultancy fee, technical fees, management fees, professional fees at 5% to both corporate and non-corporate recipient. Supply of goods other than manufacturer or producer, 2%. It used to be 5%, but it has now been reduced to 2% based on the withholding tax regulation recently signed by the Honorable Minister of Finance, and it's taking effect from this July. So it's now 2% for supply of goods contracts. Road construction, bridges, building, power plants is at 2% for both corporate and non-corporate. So any other form of construction is 5% for corporate. This is remittable to FRS, and 5% for non-corporate, remittable to the State Internal Revenue Service. Brokerage fees is 5% to FRS, 5% to state. Directors' fees, of course, that one is fully remittable to the State Internal Revenue Service, but it has now been increased to 15%. It's no longer 10%. It's no longer 10%. Yeah, it's increased. If you look at the regulation, withholding tax regulation 2024, so if you go through it, it was recently signed by the Honorable Minister of Finance. It's now 15%. Okay, we go to company income tax. It is a type of tax on income or profit of limited liability companies payable to FRS. Taxpayers prepare their self-assessment returns and file on Tax Promise. You know, Tax Promise is our online filing platform. We have gone automated now. FRS has gone fully automated. Filing, registration, everything is done on Tax Promise. So taxpayers prepare their self-assessment returns and file on Tax Promise. Time of filing of company income tax returns. Section 55 of the Company Income Tax Act. For a company which has been in business, that is an old company, not more than 6 months after the end of the accounting date. So every company has an accounting date. So you are expected to file your company income tax returns within 6 months, or not before 6 months after the end of the accounting day. But for newly incorporated companies, they file within 18 months from the date of incorporation, or not later than 6 months after the end of the first accounting period, whichever is earlier. Then there's penalty of filing. Penalty for late filing, 25,000 for the first month and 5,000 for subsequent month in which the failure continues. Now, stamp duty is one of the taxes we collect in FRS. And this arises from when instruments are executed and the need to pay the stamp duty on such instrument arises. So filing of stamp duty is now done on tax products and decentralized across all FRS offices. Stamp duty on instrument executed between companies is payable to FRS. Between company and individual is also payable to FRS. But between individual and individual is payable to the State Internal Revenue Service. Individual enterprises, okay, is payable to the State Internal Revenue Service. But between company, a limited liability company, and another limited liability company is payable to FRS. Between individual and company is payable to FRS, but individual to individual is payable to State Internal Revenue Service. Some instrument attract ad valorem duty. Hello, I'm around the person.
Please, sir, just
some instrument
around here.
Okay. So there are some instruments that attract ad valorem duty. Okay. We have those instruments lined up there. So I've shared it with you, Mr. I've already shared it, so you can go through it much later. We have some instruments liable to ad valorem duty, and those that attract fixed rate. They are there. We have filing of capital gain tax. Is another form of tax that is collected by FRS. Capital gain tax is gain on disposal of chargeable assets. The rate is 10%, and it's chargeable on all forms of property, including digital assets, incorporate property, and so on and so forth. We have filing for capital gain tax is done twice in a year. First, on or before 30th of June, and second, on or before 31st of December of the same year. Then how to obtain tax clearance? Tax clearance is, obtainable after you have fully paid your tax. You must have paid your tax, and there's no tax liability. But it can also be obtained when you have a liability. But in that instance, we restrict the tax clearance. We restrict the tax clearance until the tax liability is fully paid. So you can go through it. There are processes of generating auto generation of tax clearance. I have it there. Step-by-step process of generating tax clearance. It is there. Taxpayer is successfully registered on tax forms. Login detail received from FRS is applied on ETCC. Taxpayer logs into tcc.firs.gov.ng using the email as username and password received from FRS. So you use that and you generate your tax clearance. So you have benefit of tax clearance all listed here. You need the tax clearance for business to apply for trade business, for trade or business license, import or export license, registration as a contractor. You have all those listed. So a lot of benefits of getting tax clearance. Processing your land document, CFO, application for contract, application for loan, so on and so forth. Then what are your roles as lawyers? As Christian lawyers, you must show good examples as responsible citizens to pay your tax. Our Lord Jesus Christ laid a very good example by paying tax to the authorities in his time. So we should also show good examples to pay our taxes. As lawyers, you can act as tax consultants, complementing other tax professionals playing tax consultancy role to taxpayers. But we first advise you to register with the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, being the professional body regulating taxation in Nigeria. Then for newly registered companies with CAC, lawyers consulting for such companies can assist FRS to bring the companies to taxnet. Thank you very much for your attention.
So much. Thank you so much.
So if you have any further information, you can reach us at our office. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very, 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 very much, sir. As you can see, that was a very, very loaded and packed session, right? And you could see that I was trying to get so much crammed into the short allotted time that we have. And one of the poll questions that we have, I don't know how many of you have seen the poll. Please go to the poll and go and vote at the poll. We have a couple of questions. One of the questions is this session not short? There's no need for a physical meeting. But I can tell, even from the questions that have been coming in, that there is a pressing need for us to have a physical meeting where we are not constrained by time, they can go in depth and break it down even to smaller layers. You can give examples of your business. Is this applicable to me? Is that not applicable to me? And so please vote during the polls, or the polls are on right now. Please place your votes and let's see what your thoughts are. It also helps us get a sense of your understanding of the session as it's progressing, right? Thank you very much. So I need to bring up so we can quickly get to the juiciest part, which is the question and answer, because I know everybody is having one question or the other that you want to ask. So we're bringing the third speaker. The third speaker is none other than Mr. Adeyemi Afolabi Smith. Adeyemi is a senior manager at Preston Pedabo Professional Service. He's a member of the Institute of Directors, United Kingdom, a certified management consultant, and a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ANCAN, Institute of Management Consultants, and the Institute of Debt Recovery Practitioners of Nigeria. He is also an associate of various bodies such as the Association of Accounting Technicians West Africa, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, and also a certified insolvency practitioner. He holds a bachelor's degree in accounting from the Lagos State University, an MBA from the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and also rounding up his thesis at Babcock University to obtain his MSc Accounting. He's a seasoned tax expert with over 13 years experience in taxation, compliance, and advisory services, adding value to diverse clients in the M&Is and other business sectors of the economy. Adeyemi started his work career as an auditor at Tuni Adeshokan and Co. in 2010 between 2010 and 2013, after which he joined TAC Professional Services in 2013 and left as a senior associate in 2014 to join Counterhouse Consultant as manager, after which he left in 2015. Prior to joining Preston Pedabo, Adeyemi worked in the global compliance and reporting unit at Ernst & Young and left in 2016 and joined Pedabo as senior consultant, where he's rising through the ranks to be a senior manager in the firm. He's also trained and worked extensively with the Nigerian tax authorities to develop their capabilities to align with various recurrent global tax practices, having worked at various accounting firms, Big Four inclusive. He is known for quality output and efficient client service, which is why he's popularly called top-notch. He's a problem solver with acquired relevant skills and vast experience in tax management and advisory. Adeyemi is a board member of the Insolvency and Corporate Reengineering Faculty of ICANN and also sits on the board of numerous small and medium-scale companies to bring value to bear in such companies. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Adeyemi.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mr.
Madam Apemi, thank you so much. Maybe you should also have abridged that profile so that it shouldn't take too much of people's time. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to the entire team. Thank you for attending. So maybe let me just do a bit of a presentation for the purpose of our session so that we can look through some of those things. Can I have the permission to share?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay.
For me to share for you.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Again, all protocol due observed to my very good senior professional colleagues. Mr. Amaro, I see you, sir. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, sir.
Madam from DLRS, I also acknowledge our presence, and they've spoken to quite a lot. Spoken to Mrs. Pasura, well done, man. So they've spoken to quite a lot. Again, they are the tax authorities, and they want all the money that they can get. Government needs money to fund this economy, you know. So That's where I come in as a consultant. I'm not always a consultant to make sure that people evade taxes. It's just to make sure that people avoid taxes as much as possible within the ambit of the law. So yes, the session is quite short for us to be able to achieve what we really need to get. But again, we'll just speak to some very quick things for the purpose of having an idea of what it is, right? We can always share contacts, have another session. In fact, I might have a conversation with Madam Opemi and Mr. Achipoye on how we need to have a session that my senior colleagues are not here, and then we can talk about some tax planning strategies, tax avoidance strategies, and all of that. If I say it here now, they will beat me when I get to the office on Monday. So we'll put that to a later time. So I wouldn't speak into too much. Quite a lot has been dealt on by them, and I wouldn't want to keep re-engineering the wheel. So just speak briefly about the introduction. Yes, the only certain thing in life that we have is debt and taxes, right? Okay, I can see a comment. Someone is excited about the tax avoidance strategy. Yes, I know. This is Nigeria now. Why won't we want to avoid taxes? Most important thing is that when looking at the ambit of taxation, it is inevitable. You are going to have to pay taxes, even though you will now be able to determine or be able to plan around how much is the least that I can pay within the ambit of the law as a Christians that we are, not evasion. So avoidance is using the legitimate provisions in the law to take advantage. Evasion is, lying and doing all sorts just to make sure that you reduce taxes. So it's much better to tilt towards tax avoidance than tax evasion. Mr. Maru and Madam spoke about taxation. Yes, it's a compulsory levy because two things that are certain is debt and taxes. So no matter what we do and where we go, tax and debt is inevitable. And they also talked about the administration, which is the FIRS, the respective state of boards of internal revenue in each state and the local governments. And so we don't dwell too much on the introduction because tax is everything that every serious government. Tax is like a bloodline of every serious country, right? Where they have been able to finance every key infrastructural development that is done in every country. So we need to start taking tax serious. While looking at avoidance, we also need to look at how to make our country better. At the end of the day, this is our country, right? So we need to always contribute our own quota to the development, even for ourselves, our businesses to thrive, or the family that we come from, and a lot of things. So that being said, but about the introduction, next slide, please. Next. Okay, so good. Registration requirement and applicable taxes. Every individual, right, is a taxable person. Every individual is a taxable person, except when you stop earning an income. So which means that at every point in time, you're a taxable person as long as you earn income, irrespective of what your age is, right? Some income are exempted from taxes by virtue of the provisions. But the fact is that every taxable person has an obligation to register. With the advent of e-tax now, it's easy to register, right? And get your tax PID to remit your taxes. And for everyone that you have in your company, like Madam Basirat said earlier, you as the employer, you have an obligation to actually pay on behalf of these employees, because when the tax authority comes for scrutiny in the future or some sort of review, you're going to have a lot of problems with having to accumulate all of those non-payment, the interest and the penalties, and the staff that you had in your employment at that time might have left. So it's difficult to recover. So which means that for every employee that you have an obligation to actually deduct taxes from them. And the fact that we have, Gamaliel mentioned, Madam Basirat mentioned, the fact that tax authorities are now beginning to synchronize into tax technology, which creates the easiness. I can be in my house on a Saturday and generate a tax PID for myself, or generate a TIN number, or apply for tax clearances because of the advent of having tax technology. So which means that everything is a bit simplified than what we used to have. Now, the personal income tax is what talks about an individual, and it's split into two. It's either the pay as you earn or the direct assessment. Under the pay as you earn is the one where you are an employee to a company, and then the company deducts taxes from your salary and then pays to government. But the direct assessment is when you're self-employed or where you have additional income other than what you got from employment, and the need for you to actually pay those taxes as long as you have income, right? It simply means that you would be liable to pay those taxes irrespective of how you feel or sentiment or whatever. It's more like a civic obligation. So that's more like an overview on the personal income tax on payee and direct assessment. So the obligation for direct assessment is 31st of March every year. So 31st of March this year, for instance, one should be able to tell government how much you made last year from all sources, and then, you know, claim your relief and allowances, and then pay the applicable taxes, so that you know that you will actually have a good tax standing, right? Can we go to the next slide, please? So looking at the tax table that we have, right? It simply means that this tax table is a graduated tax table. What it means is that where your income, taxable income, after making all adjustments and claim for reliefs and allowances are done, this tax table is what you follow to tax the income that you have applicable in Nigeria today. So it's on a graduated scale. So if you earn 1 million, for instance, simply means that out of that 1 million, by the time you take relief and allowances and you look at your taxable income, it might sit around 800,000 naira. Out of that 800,000, that would now be the income that will be subject to taxes. So the first 300 from the 800 will now be taken at 7%, and the next one at 11, and like that until that taxable income is exhausted. So it's more like a progressive system of taxation, where the higher you earn, the higher the band of where you fall to for the purpose of tax. Now, for minimum taxes, like what we currently have, as long as you're earning the minimum wage, you're exempted from minimum taxes on an annual basis, right? It simply means that that is the minimum that you can pay at any point in time, meaning that where your income, for instance, has does not fall above all of this threshold, it simply means that you get to pay something, no matter how small it is. It used to be 1% of your total income if you earn 300,000 naira per annum and below. But right now, the minimum wage simply means they would be outrightly exempted. Now, on capital gains tax on termination benefits, when you sack someone or you terminate someone, there is always like a severance pay paid to them, or more like a compensation for you sacking them, or compensation for them losing their jobs. The CGT Act has now created some provisions to say, look, someone cannot be losing their jobs. We're paying them for losing their jobs and try to console them, and then we still subject the money to taxes. So they came a provision to say, okay, we'll take taxes from it if the money is above 10 million. It simply means if the money is above 10 million, you're a big fish, right? And the compensation should be taxed at the excess of that 10 million. But if it is below 10 million, you are actually exempted from paying any form of taxation, CGT or PE or whatever. And next slide, please. Okay, so maybe I will not draw too much on this. Ogamal talked about the basis for having to register for taxes and how documentations that you need. Every company actually has to register for taxes, right? And those are the level of documentations that would be needed. Now, you need to be aware of this. There's no reason to run from taxation where you actually have some trust exemptions speaking to your benefits. So what that means is that if you have a company that is a limited liability company, ending with limited, and your turnover is less than 25 million every year, it simply means that no matter the profit you make in that year, you're going to be taxed at 0%. It simply means you are outrightly exempted. So all you have to do is to put in proper books in place so that you don't dilute your business money with your personal funds, reporting into the business account that you have to now to start to explain because you won't have evidence. Your wife transferring money into your account, you transferring money, moving money up and down. For the purpose of taxes, business is business, personal is personal, right? So if you have turnover of less than 25 million, you're exempted from taxes. Do your legitimate business, file your regular returns, do everything you need to do and get your tax clearances. Because what it means is that you're actually here to meet that threshold for the purpose of taxation. But the moment your turnover moves from 25 to 100, then you get to be taxed at 20% of your accessible profit to tax. When it grows up 100 and above, then it moves to 30%. Now, CGT is what talks about the tax you pay when you dispose the right to own something. It could be an asset, it could be rights to use anything, it could be anything. As long as there's a disposal of rights, you actually incur capital gains tax. Just to clarify, team members in blue. Yes, correct. So capital gains tax, right, is the tax that you pay when you actually dispose the right or anything. Now, what that also means is that there's also another provision of PPT that also speak to companies in the oil and gas sector and how they're going to be taxed in terms of the operations and the profit they make and all of that. Now, the personal income tax is what that was spoken to by Madam earlier, and it talks about your taxes as a personal individual, which we also mentioned in the earlier slide. Next, please. Next slide, please. Yes, Mr. Mao talked about stamp duties, talked about VAT, talked about withholding taxes, talked about customer and excise. Now, one key thing to know is that not all transactions are actually liable to stamp duties. They are dutiable documents, which creates a need for you to always pay CGT, right? And what that does is that it gives you an idea of what I should pay stamp duty on. Stamp duty is collectible by FIRS, but at some instances where you are doing, for instance, increase in share capital or some regularization, CAC might collect that. So even when the FIRS asks, it's always better to provide the evidence of payment to the CAC, which makes it better, right? The value-added tax you mentioned about is now currently at 7.5 on supply, but not everything is vatable. There are categories of asset vatable, there are categories of asset not vatable, goods and services, right? So certain provisions of that VAT Act spells out interpretation on what and what those terms enshrined in the law means, and then it defines what goods and services mean. So as long as you do not meet that threshold of 25 million, you do not have to charge anybody VAT, and you do not have to pay anybody VAT, right? So what it means is that you are actually exempted from the VAT provisions because you're actually earning a turnover of less than 25 million. So the obligation on your invoice rests on the other person, talking about self-charging and all of that. But in your own books, as long as you have 25 million, less than 25 million revenue, you don't get to charge VAT on your invoices, which makes your product a bit cheaper and affordable compared to others who actually inbuild, those taxes into their processes. The withholding taxes is straightforward. Let me tell you, interestingly, quite a lot of businesses and individuals have withholding tax credits sitting with Madam Basirat and the Lagos state authorities that they are not aware of and they are not utilizing. They just go to pay taxes regularly. What it means is that your credit is sitting with either federal government or sitting with the state government because someone has done business with you, but deducted maybe a 5% or the 10%, depending on what you did for them, and remitted it on your behalf. So it simply means even if you have tax payable of 40,000, there's every likelihood that from that transaction, you already have withholding tax of about 26,000. What it means is that the balance you're in government is 14,000. But quite a lot of businesses don't know. They just go ahead to pay the 40,000 and then abandon the credit. So there's always a need to have, like a consultant or someone who can actually help you follow up on those processes. The customer and excise duty, straightforward. It depends on the transactions that you did. As long as you're into the business of importation, always specified by the customs, Nigerian Immigration Service. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so I wouldn't dwell too much on this. NGO, for the purpose of reporting, Mr. Mao already mentioned, the applicability of taxes on NGO, right? There are clear exemptions for them where they do not carry out trade or businesses, and the fact that when they involve in their operations, their activities are actually not vatable, and even when you render some services to them, it makes your services actually zero rated, depending on what it falls to under their own nature of service. Next slide, please. Can you move 2 slides forward? I think we've spoken about this, the company income tax, withholding tax. Yes. Next slide. Okay, next, please. I was told I have 2 minutes more. Yes, next. So now, this has to be noted properly. The business, let's go to one before the conclusion. There's an implication for every business model that you decide to incorporate. And that is why companies and individuals have to be careful. A lot of people just feel, oh, I like the word limited. Let me go and register. There is always a need to actually evaluate yourself, what your intention are for the purpose of the business is, because every business that you have has its own implication. If you're a sole proprietor, for instance, what it means is that you're running a business that has to you have to pay taxes on as a person. So if I have a business registered as a business name, whatever profit is made from that business is deemed to be mine. And so I'll be taxable from the profit I make from that business. The same way you have a partnership business where 2 or 3 people come together to run a business structure. It simply means at the end of the day, whatever it is that the business produces as the net profit after you've done all your expenses, yes, would be attributed to each partner in the firm, in wherever, right? And that money or that profit would now be liable to tax in the hands of each of those partners in the firm, to the extent of having their claims and allowances. And the same way you have corporations or companies, that's the limited liability company or the PLCs, right? Where you get to pay tax on the profit of the company as a whole. But I can also tell you that in subsequent classes we would also talk about how government can actually fund your existence as a company in entirety so that your taxes are reduced to the barest minimum. We talk about all of those strategies in subsequent classes. But the fact is that as a company, you also have the duty to pay your taxes. The non-profit organization, like we talked about earlier, are not are liable to tax except where they now do other things. They do advisory, they now start doing consultancy, they now start investing. It simply means that there's some sort of income that should be liable to tax in their hands, which conclusively, the cooperative ones are the ones that are exempted by virtue of the bylaws or the laws of incorporation in their states, because what the cooperative society is meant to do is actually meant to relieve burdens of members for the purpose of promoting their welfare and betterment of individual lives. And that is why they are not actually liable to taxation. So concluding, I would say that when you want to incorporate a business, right, forget your personal or individual sentiment. You actually need to seek professional guidance on what is most optimal for the goal you intend to achieve. Because if care is not taken, you would have incorporated something you do not need, and then you would have to follow all level of compliance required by both state and federal, when you could just have been, focused on just state because you're not on that scale of operation. So I would like to close with that. We can always have subsequent chats or talks in subsequent classes. Thank you for having me and making me rush this class. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adeyemi. We appreciate you. Thank you. I can see a lot of people excited about tax avoidance strategies. And yes, it's nothing to feel guilty about. Billionaires all over the world employ these strategies to minimize to the utmost possible best the taxes they are liable to pay, and the world over. So yes, it's wonderful. So we'll dive right into questions and answers, because I can just feel the heat of people wanting to solve several of their personal tax and company tax problems. So the first one we'll take is addressed to Madam Baserat. Why do I pay tax after VAT as a professional earning fee based on my services? Madam Baserat, ma.
Sorry, I can't get the question right. Why do I pay tax after my...
After VAT as a professional earning fee based on my services?
After paying, yes, after paying VAT, that is VAT. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yes, you need to pay taxes for the profit or the income you make on the job you did. Fine. The VAT you pay could be for the services rendered to the federal inland revenue, but on your own profits or the income you paid, you need to pay taxes on the profits. So that's the same.
The person is asking why.
Why? This is the law.
So more like a justification.
So is the law? Am I wrong? Is the law? You've said it that the only important thing in life is debts and taxes. So it's compulsory. You need to pay. Is it the Constitution of Nigeria that every taxable adult you need to pay your taxes, even though you are 100 or 1 million, assuming, as far as you're handling an income, you need to pay. Even though you are a 10-year-old guy or a boy, and your parents did an investment for you, or you have some money somewhere lodged in the bank, you need to pay taxes on them. The dividend you need to pay. So it's the law. It's not Lagos state law, but the federal law, and it's compulsory.
All right. Thank you very much, ma.
Yes.
There's another question here. For individuals who work for corporations abroad as individuals who are already taxed from those employers abroad. Okay, so I think the question is, this person works for corporations abroad, and those companies already tax them and pay the taxes to, let's say, the United Kingdom or Switzerland. Why do I need to say? Do I still need to pay personal pay as you earn taxes or personal income tax in Nigeria again?
No, not actually. It works like this. If the country you reside in has a DAT with Nigeria, double taxation agreement with Nigeria, and that's proof, you're able to provide evidences that the organization you work with will actually remitting your taxes to Lagos State or to any IRS. It's not necessary for you to pay taxes, except maybe you want a land transaction in Lagos, for example. Do you understand? You want a land transaction in Lagos, and the document you submitted to Lagos State where it seems to be inappropriate, you may ask to pay additional. But not in all cases, we just need to see the evidences, your ID card of where you work with, your tax remittances. Sometimes you even give a waiver on such, if you have DTA with such country, that double taxation agreement with such country, often we give a waiver, but it's only the executive chairman that can give such waiver. Yes, that's the question. That's the answer,
Okay.
please. Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Amaro, I would like you to weigh in on that as well. Although this is for individual, let's assume it's a company. What is applicable in that regard?
I didn't get that.
I said I'd like you to weigh
I didn't
on
get
it. A company, a Nigerian company that does work for other companies abroad, and those other companies abroad already pay taxes to their own country. Would the Nigerian company be liable to pay taxes in Nigeria again?
Of course, Nigerian companies are registered as taxpayers in Nigeria. And the law recognizes that taxes are paid based on your global income. Income earned abroad will be taxable in your country of origin, the country of residence. Nigerian company that does business abroad, you'll be taxed on your global income. However, just like Madam rightly said, if Nigeria has a double taxation agreement or treaty with the company, the other company, with the other country, what is needed to be done is to offset whatever tax that you paid outside the country, outside Nigeria. So the law allows that, yes, because there's a double taxation agreement between Nigeria and the other country, the treaty nation, the tax that is paid outside Nigeria can be offset from whatever that is you are liable to pay in Nigeria. So that is it. For Nigerian companies, they are taxed based on their global income. And that is how it works.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. There's another question that says, how do diplomats prove to sellers/vendors selling to them in Nigeria that their tax is zero rated? Mr. Omar, did you get that? Hello? Can everyone hear me?
The
Just to be
system
sure.
is frozen. Maybe you can
Okay, I
repeat.
wanted to be sure it wasn't from my end. Okay. Okay, so we'll probably just come back to that question. Okay, there's another question. Good
vendors.
morning. We presently have. Oh, okay. Welcome back, Mr. Amaru. We lost you for a bit. Mr. Amaru, can you hear us?
Can go ahead, please.
Okay, yes. So the question was, how do diplomats prove to vendors selling to them that their tax is zero rated?
The question is what? That I can hear you. Take the question again. How do diplomats prove to their vendors?
During your presentation, you said, yes, how do diplomats prove this at the point of purchase?
Okay. First of all, you must identify yourself as a diplomat. When you go out to make purchases outside there. And yes, I say you are Nigeria, but you're a diplomat. Identify yourself. Then at that point, at that point of purchase, you're not expected to pay VAT. But you must have, first of all, identify yourself. There must be an identity. The diplomats, otherwise you suffer the VAT. So it is the diplomat that must identify himself that, yes, he's a diplomat by showing his evidence that he's a diplomat.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Moving on, we presently have registration with LIRS. How do we generate pay ID for new team members who So that their taxes can be paid through the company. Okay.
Okay, yeah. I think
Madam
that's for
Basira.
me. Yes, that's for me. And in my course of discussion with Mr. Jiboye, I gave him my official email that it is possible he can compile all the list of members that need payer ID, and I'll help them generate the tax ID with some information they will need it. But if they want to do it individually on their own, it's fine. They can go online and go to etax.lra.net, etax.lrs.net, and they will get all this information they required in generating tax ID. It's easy. It's easy to navigate. It's very, very easy to navigate. Though I know in a subsequent meeting, physical meeting, my director of IT is here on call, but he's just at the background in case there's some technical question on e-tax. He can put light into it, but what you're asking is too simple. Just go to etax@lra.net or walk into any of our tax stations. A tax station. A tax ID will be created for the person at no cost.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
So you see, Lagos State is making everything as simple as possible for people to pay their taxes and be tax compliant. So that's wonderful. Okay. There's a question here that says withholding tax for FRS and withholding tax for LIRS. What's the difference?
Can I take that?
Yes, please.
Yes, just like I said in my earlier short presentation, I said basically withholding taxes for Lagos is on the individual. And for federal is a corporate entity or limited liability company. You understand? But if you have an enterprise, just like Mr. Adeyemi said, you cannot differentiate between you and your enterprise. It's the same person. But with a limited liability company, all deductions go to federal inland revenue, and at an applicable rate, which has already been ruled out by all the participants, all the presenters here. We have different rates, and everything has been discussed here already. So that's just a basic thing.
All right, Mama. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, so there's a question that says, what are the uses of withholding tax credits? It would be nice to know the rewards that companies and individuals get for being fully tax compliant. Please don't say infrastructures in Nigeria, as these are in different states. I want something that is tangible benefits for me.
Okay, yes, just as Adeyemi said, the withholding credits is, I can't say it's underutilized, but you need to get a tax plan. You need to plan your taxes. Get a tax planner to help you prepare your account. Fine. You will have any company or individual you did the business with will tell that value or contract 5% from your money to be remitted to Lagos State. So when you are filing your return at the end of the year for your return, you need to take into account and upload that credits that you've already been given, the 5% of the contract you did. But the point now is you will need to prepare your accounts for your contract. It's not all accounts you do individually. Yes, and this is an original I'm giving here. It's not a contract you did personally. You need to prepare your account. Definitely in the course of the contract you did, you have incurred some expenses in the course of the business. So you need to prepare your account to submit along with your returns at the end of the year. So by the time when the LRS is calculating such tax that is due to you, they will take into account the credits, the credit that you've been given earlier, and that will reduce your liability. But you need to prepare account. If you don't prepare your account, we only take the value and add it back to your income. And that would still make your taxes due to be higher. But if you prepare your accounts, definitely will take consideration the allowable consideration that we still take into consideration the one that will be exempted from taxes and allowed for you, and that will automatically reduce your tax liability. So it's an advantage if you do your tax planning very well. And that is how you need the Pedabo and Co. to help you plan your taxes, to help you plan your file and file for you at the end of the year. You need a consultant to advise you better. It's another thing to pay the withholding taxes, another thing to file in properly and do your planning well to get the benefits for such. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uma. That is so spot on. That is so spot on. Thank you very much. I hope you're taking note of the cheat codes that are being said here. Everyone during this webinar, it's quite instructive. Okay, there's a question here that says, so just to get clarity, team members earning below the minimum wage of 70,000 Naira monthly are exempted from taxes.
I'm not sure anybody's exempted from taxes again now. There was a time, I can't remember you can remind me of the year when 1% should be given on the minimum of 30,000 per annum. But now, 2020, is it 2021 or 2022? I can't remember the date now. You only work the percentage graduates. Nobody's exempted again. The CRA has consolidated all reliefs so that nobody's exempted. Even though there's an allowance in your hand, it's still an income, so you need to pay taxes on it. So 70% monthly, an individual need to pay taxes on it. It's a graduating thing.
Thank you very much, Ma, for that clarification. What's the difference between payer ID and tax identification number, Mr. Amaro?
The difference between what?
Payer ID and tax identification number.
A taxpayer ID and tax
Yeah.
identification number. Okay, taxpayer ID is
Yes, please.
is the same thing with tax identification number. Tax identification number is the number that is issued to a taxpayer at the point of registration. It's the same ID platform. So without the ID, you cannot file your returns, you cannot pay your taxes. That is what you identify it as a taxpayer. So taxpayer ID, taxpayer identification number is almost the same thing. However, at the point of registration, there is a login detail that is always sent to you when you fully register, successfully register on Tax Promise. That login details give you access to Tax Promise at the point of making your returns. So essentially, taxpayer ID and tax identification number is the same thing.
All right, thank you very much for that.
That's
Okay,
your
I have
login
another
details.
question. Thank you very much, sir. So I have another question. Please, sir, can a company that registered for almost a year but is not into any business be eligible for tax clearance certificates? How do one go about it? Mr. Amaro, did you hear that?
Network is bad.
Can you hear me now? Hello, Mr. Amaro. Can you hear me, sir? Okay, I think his network is bad. So I'll take another question.
Hello?
Okay, can you hear me now? You can just turn off your video, maybe to make it better.
I can't hear you at all.
Mr. Amaro, can you turn off your video just so that your network quality is better?
I can't.
Okay, so I'll just move on to another question.
I can't hear you.
So the person is saying kindly differentiate between the tax liabilities of business. No, but we can't hear Mr. Amaro. Those are his questions. Okay, so let me take one for Lagos State. I work in a healthcare setting, hospital. Please, what is not taxable? Should hazard allowance, locum be taxed? I think Letitia already answered to that in the prior question, but I'll just let's answer it again. If my revenue is less than 25 million, do I still need to file for VAT? Madam Basera.
VAT is for federal. I don't think so. That's for Mr. Omar. VAT is for federal.
So it's a two-in-one
question.
But if you work at a public health, there's a question asked on public health practitioner.
Yes, the person works in the healthcare sector. So the person wants to know if they'll be taxed for local allowance, hazard allowance, and the likes.
Everything. Everything is taxable. Everything is taxable. Mm. All allowances. Yes. Mm. Mhm.
All right. Just for the say, what of students that in uni that get allowances from their
No, no,
parents?
no,
Shouldn't
no,
it
no, no,
include?
no, no, no,
Okay,
no, no,
just for
no.
clarity purposes.
If a student likes that and a core member now or a student needs a tax clearance, definitely can it can get an exemption. You just apply on a portal and present all the necessary documents, your school, if you're a student, your school results, your admission letter, your ID card, and some documents to show that you are really a student. Definitely you get the tax exemption. And even if you're a core member and you're still serving now, we all know that that allowance, the peanuts, we don't tax it just to keep transporting you from work to where you are working is tax free. So you get an exemption for that. Except when you are working in a well-organized company and you are earning salary and wages, then you get to pay your taxes on those ones. So,
Okay, ma'am.
yeah.
So I have another question here that says, please, 10% of what value?
Sorry to
Okay.
interject. Yeah. So I quickly want to, I was actually looking that maybe we would have a gap before I wanted to contribute to something that Madam said as regards
Please go ahead.
taxing the minimum wage. So before now, what we had is the fact that when you earn the minimum wage of 30,000 naira and below, right, by virtue of Finance Act amendment, you were exempted from paying taxes, 30,000 naira and below. But since the minimum tax has been reviewed upward, there is no law yet that has referred to the 70,000 as being exempted. So what it means is that 30,000 naira is still what is there until that provision is amended to say that, okay, but the best you can enjoy is that there's still what we call minimum income tax in Lagos or in each of the relevant state of authorities, where in every year, for instance, you've taken allowances such that it has eroded the entire money, you have no tax to pay. It simply means that at the end of the day, you still get to pay 1% of your total income. Worst case scenario. Say you have 300,000, for instance, it simply means that in that year, you should pay at least 3,000 naira to government without the minimum wage consideration. That was also a simulation. So that at the end of the day, you get to pay something to government. So not that, oh, you are just fully exempted, except if you earn that minimum wage of 30,000 naira below. So until the law is amended, maybe in the next Finance Act, you might not be able to take the impact of that 70,000 minimum wage until then. But currently, if it's the minimum wage of 30 and below, you're exempted. And others can follow the graduated tax table. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. So we are waiting for the law to catch up basically, for people to enjoy the prior exemption that was applicable under 30,000 naira minimum wage. I hope that provides further clarity on that. There's a question here that says, give me a moment, please. Madam Batira, just for clarity purposes, we'd like you to, differentiate between taxpayer ID and TIN, because I know some people are still not clear on that. Please pitch in. Thank you, Ma.
Yes, thank you. Tax ID is basically for Lagos states. It's you are smiling. Yes, it is basically for Lagos State, and that is the only identification we have is unique to you. Before it's generated to you, we'll have asked you some vital question that is personal, that is encrypted, that cannot be seen by any other person except yourself. So it's the only way you can enter our portal and do the other businesses that relate to taxes in Lagos State. Why the thing is for everyone in Nigeria. It's for everyone in Nigeria. Though some individual now comes around now, if they want to go to the bank, if they want to do some businesses with FIRS, they want to get their thing. I wish we, like an enterprise too, they come around, I'll generate for them. That is for the federal, for everyone in the country, but the personal income tax but the tax ID is basically for the Lagos states. basically for LRS in Lagos State. And that is the only key identification we have unique to your person attached to you. So if you come around now and you said, I want to see my record, I will ask you, what is your ID? What is your tax ID? That is the only thing that will give me permission to enter your portal and whatever business you want to do with us. And if you don't have, right on there, I'll create one for you with all the details I've asked for you. If you supply those details, I'll definitely create one for you. So that's the difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maya, for that clarification. So there's a question here that says, please, 10% of all value. This is referring to the LRS business levy / development levy that was earlier mentioned. 10% of all value.
No. Business premises. Or is that what to say? What did you say?
Development levy, business premises, yes. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think Madam's next. Oh,
okay. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
we can hear you.
Okay, I think it's frozen. Madam, when you're back, just let us know, please. Okay, Mr. Amaro, are you back? Fully back now?
Yes, I'm back.
Yay! Goodness, wonderful. So we had a couple of questions for you that we missed. Please give me a second. Okay, so someone had said that if my revenue is less than 25 million, do I still need? You can't hear me again. Oh wow.
Well, I can hear you.
Yes, so I think it's a network again.
Possible.
Adede, please just put in the chat for Mr. Amaro that he should turn off his video. You will probably have better services that way, so we can hear you. Thank you so much. Okay. So yes, Madam Asirat is back. Yes, ma. 10% levy on what value? We can't hear you, ma. You're muted.
Sorry. I said I have to log in with my phone when the system is getting problem. So I can't get the question again, please. Can you please come again with the question?
Okay, so you had mentioned a 10% value, 10% levy being paid.
It's 10,000. 10,000 development levy for a new company that is registered in Lagos under PYE. It's 10%. It's 10,000 naira for the first year. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, ma.
It's 10,000 naira for the first year of registration. You are registering for your PYE of your company, and 5,000 naira for subsequent years. But mind you,
okay,
NGO is exempted for that. Business premises, yes. It has to do with business premises. Okay. But mind you, NGO are exempted from that. Of that business premises, because we know they are non-profit organizations, so we exempt them from that. But all staff working with an NGO definitely earning a salary would definitely pay their PYE, and they would need to pay their development levy every year.
Okay, ma. Okay, ma. Thank you so much. Mr. Adiemi, I'd like you to take this question since we can't get Mr. Amaro. So the question is, if my revenue is less than 25 million, do I still need to file for VAT?
No, you don't. You don't.
Please provide long answer so that people get appropriate notification.
So, the VAT provision actually defines what a taxable person is. Section 15 of that VAT Act talks about rendition of returns, and it says a taxable person shall be deemed to make a taxable supply if you earn a minimum of 25,000 naira in any calendar month, in any month or any calendar year, right, from which you're expected to actually file your returns. So what that means by implication is that if you actually earn less than 25 million in any financial year, you do not have the obligation to charge VAT or to file returns until you cross that threshold. If that answers your question. You're muted, madam.
Sorry.
Hello? Can I
Thank
add
you
to
very
that?
much, Mr. Adiemi. Okay, yes, Mr. Amaro, please go ahead. Can you hear me, Mr. Omoro?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, let me add to what Mr. Adeyemi said. Actually, the law, section 15, as he rightly quoted, exempts all companies, small companies with turnover below 25 million threshold. They are exempted from filing, they are exempted from penalties of late filing and so on and so forth. However,
I think his network is frozen again. Okay. So, Mr. Adeyemi, I have another question here, just because it's frozen and we are trying to maximize time. We've overshot our time. So a person here says, I registered my business name since 2012 during the time when I was in paid employment, but I'm yet to commence business or open an account. What do I need to do now that I want to commence business activities? Or will I be liable for any penalties?
Okay, for which of the businesses? Business name or business
Name, business name.
Oh, okay.
And then we have another one for company, so you can just address both of them.
Okay, so typically, when you have a company that you've registered, right, for a long time, the expectation is that the moment you commence business, you're liable to start paying taxes and filing tax returns. So irrespective of the fact that the business was registered in 2012 for an individual and nothing had been done and the company is about to commence business, it might also be a good idea to write to the state, the Lagos State Internal Revenue, notifying them of the commencement of your business, right? But then again, you would be asked to prove that that business has actually not commenced. So if you have been using that business name to actually open a bank account, you've been sending money there, you've been using it to fund some things, that creates a complexity, because what it means is that money has been coming and going out, except where you can prove that, okay, the business was incorporated, yes, but nothing has been done, no bank accounts, even the bank accounts are in zero, or even the money there's just been more money deposited there or being saved there over time by yourself, more like accumulating working capital, right? That is still tenable within the provisions. And then you can start fulfilling from that day that you commence business. But you might also need to write to the authorities to notify them that, okay, your business was incorporated at so time and you're now just starting business. However, for a limited liability company, it's always expected that your obligation starts the day you commence business. So if you're yet to commence business, even if you've registered business as far back as 1990, it does not have any tax implication. Again, the law applicable to the business name also applies to it. So if you have been using that bank account of the company to throwing money in and out, you're going to have a very difficult time explaining, because you won't have evidence to prove that they were not actually business funds. As long as you can prove all of that, irrespective of when you open the business, the highest that would happen is that you would have liabilities to pay to the Corporate Affairs Commission in terms of having to file your returns to them and all of that, late returns and all of that. For the purpose of corporate taxes and personal income taxes, there are no penalties for not having done anything with that company from inception till date.
All right. Thank you very much for that really in-depth answer. It was quite instructive. Thank you so much. And I know there are still more questions pouring in, but this is to let you know that this is a teaser, and that's why we'll be having a physical session where you can almost have like a one-on-one where your own specific questions will be trashed. So please look out for the one-on-one, the physical meeting rather, on tax law compliance that we'll be having subsequently. And you will see all the links for Gamaliel Stable, TCN Ikeja, the Covenant Nation Ikeja, who are the hosts for this, and other detailed websites for Lagos State LIRS and all. So you'll see all of those details in the links in the chat. So please make use of them. And without further ado, I need to call up our Oga Dayo Junsi to come and round off and give a closing remark. But thank you everyone for coming, especially to our speakers. We appreciate your time and we do not take it for granted. Madam Adedayo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Femi. Good morning, everyone. I'm sure that we've had a very insightful and amazing session. Just want to say a big thank you. We can't thank you enough to our speakers for just sharing and giving us as much as they can in this very, very short time that we have. So like we mentioned, this is just a teaser. We still plan to have a physical session, even though I'm saying that the poll requesting if we should go ahead to have a physical session has not been answered. So please, we need your feedback. Kindly go to the activities section of the Google Meet and just take that poll. It's poll 8. It says, would you like to attend a physical session of the legal clinic? Because we're having this to also provide more information. So we want to be sure that this is what you want to hear, right? So please take the poll and then let's know if we should go ahead. Thank you again to our speakers, and thank you to our wonderful audience. Our comments, our responses have been very encouraging. I wish we could hear voices, right? But I know that we're short of time, and I know a lot of people have raised up their hands. Please, the links will be shared in just like one document. If you still have questions, please send us an email. Our email is ikeja, tcnikeja legal@gmail.com. We'll try our possible best to answer it. But the plan is for us to have a physical session where we have much more time to take all of these questions. So just a brief about who we are. Gamaliel's Table is a nexus of lawyers at TCN Ikeja, the Covenant Nation Ikeja. Why did we start this? We realized that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. And a lot of people find themselves in various situations where they're paying penalties, they are variance with the law just because they do not have an idea of what to do. And this is why we do what we do. We have a platform, what we call free legal clinics. So we have designated days where we give free services, advisory services, one-on-one services to people who need legal advice. And this that we're doing today is just one of the outlets. We can do it in a seminar, format of having a seminar or having legal clinics. And yes, we are members of TCN Ikeja Lagos. We also want to use this opportunity to invite you. If you don't have a place where you're worshiping already, or you could stop by. Services hold on Sundays. I'm wondering if Ajibola can help us share the flyers. So we have services, and we're also moving to our place by next week, 32 Oregon, Kudirat Abela Way, Oregon, Lagos. So we invite you to come and join us. And once again, we want to say thank you for attending this session, and we hope that you've gotten value from it. God bless you. Thank you so much, Madam Basirat. Thank you, Mr. I'll call you Mayoga. Thank you, Mr. Gabriel Umaru. Thank you so much, Mr. Adeyemi. And thank you, like Madam Basirat said, we actually had the Director of ICT from LRS also join in. Yes, his name is Mr. Rashid Olu Ajayi. Thank you so much. And please do us a favor. We love feedback. Please fill the feedback form. Everything you want to see in subsequent sessions, your questions, anything you want us to know so that we can also improve this, please let us know in the feedback form. Hope I'm not missing out anything. Yes, so from all of us here, from the Gamaliel's Table, and yes, thank you to our lawyers. I mean, we had lawyers who turned to content creators, turned to e-flyer designers, turned to events managers, just because we had to have this clinic. And thank you so much. We have Hot Hub. Hot Hub is a part of Ikeja, TCN Ikeja, that organizes people in homogeneous groups, the real estate group. So you'd always find a place, that you can fit in. If you're a lawyer, you're an accountant, whatever it is, the Hot Hub has a way of just integrating everyone in the church. And they are the ones that give us this platform to use. So without further ado, we just want to say thank you to God, even for giving us the opportunity to be alive, to have this session. And we pray that as we step into a new month, God will grant us our desires. He will keep us safe in good health, and he will prosper us in Jesus' name. Thank you, everyone. God bless us. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. Bye.
Thank you for having us. Bye.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
for
everyone.
coming. We appreciate you.
So there's also a link for physical registrations. So if you know you hadn't registered before, because some people just joined automatically. If you haven't registered before, you can just click on that registration link and register, so that when we're sending out the invite for the physical meeting, you would get an email and an SMS to attend. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone.